We got some underwater lights, so these are our underwater lights. We got bilge pumps, we got flow switches. Now, I'm going to talk about this thing a little bit later on. We've got switches, and we've got our fuse boxes, our fuse blocks. All right, so we're going to get into this, and we're going to start doing some installation. That might not all be in this particular video. We're going to break it up into a few different videos, but that's what we're going to be doing.
So what we're doing to get started is basically using a little insert / seal as a template to mark out our cutouts for the switch blocks. Then we're just using a spirit level as a straight edge. That gives us a nice straight line that we can cut along. And once we've done that, what we're going to do is use a drill to drill holes into each of the corners. In this case we've used a 13mm drill bit, and that gives us enough room to get our jigsaw blade down into position to make those cuts.
Two holes. See that one fits. Beautiful. Like the other one in. That's it. Nice. Are you happy with that? Yep. Nice and level at the top, bottom, evenly spaced, sweet. That's good. Now switches are in, now we're just going to wire it up. Do that again. Sweet, okay, excellent. Nice and straight. We'll have to get some labels and put some labels up the top here, so yep, some acrylic. What I've got here is basically my wires, my fuse blocks, and I've already set up some DIN rail. Not DIN rail's different. I've set up my bus bars. But what I need to do now is get this cabling nice and tidy. What I want to do is I've got cable tie mounts. I've already put one on there. I've got a couple of different sizes of cable ties. I've got 100mm cable ties, and I've got 200mm cable ties. I'm using the 100mm because I like the smaller cable ties. What I want to do is basically get this cable dressing nice and neat. So to do that, I'm just going to put a tie around here, but I'm going to leave it nice and loose for now, because what I want to be able to do is get all of my wires into a nice neat position, bring them out like that. Let's see. I want to try and get that radius here the same on all of them so that it looks reasonable. Probably not going to get it perfect. And now I'm going to tighten that up a little bit so they don't move. Now I haven't labelled any of these wires yet either, so just be mindful of that. That's something that I will do later. What I need to do is, because these have got sticky backs on them, if we peel that adhesive off, or this little plastic bit off, it's just an adhesive that'll stick to the back of this wall. I'll show you what that wall is too later. But what I want to do is I don't want that coming off, so I'm going to put some screws through them. Should have done that before, but never mind. So I've got to do that now. Put a screw in there. So I don't want that coming off. Look, I should probably explain a little bit more what these things are. Basically, they little standoff. There's a little groove in there, a little slot, whatever, that you can pass the ties through, and you bring them around, and like that. So it keeps your cable dressing and your cable ties and everything nice and neat, and get them nice and straight, line it all up, get it tidy. So there we go. What I like to do is try and get my wire systems as neat as I possibly can.
So what I typically do is stick the cable tie mounts into position, then I'll screw them in to make sure that they don't fall off. I'll put my cable ties through, feed the cables up through them, and then tie the cable ties off, but not too tight, because I want to be able to move those cables and wires around and make sure I can get them as neat as I possibly can. And just remembering that the more time you spend on it, the neater you can get it.
Alrighty, now I've got to get a crimp onto my supply to these circuits, to these sub-circuits, and I've chosen 16mm squared copper cable. I couldn't get tinned copper cable, so I'm just going to have to live with that. What I'm going to do though is I've got a double insulated cable. It's a quality cable, so we've got insulation, and then our copper conductor. So what I've done is I've already stripped back my copper, or strip back my insulation I should say. Then what I like to do is turn the copper into the direction that I'm going to twist it on, fit that over the top. So I've got something that I should note here too. I don't know if you're going to be able to see this very well at all, but that's the crimp that I'm going to use. So that's a 16-6, so that's 16mm squared cable with a 6mm hole. Alright, so jam that in there, well not jam it in there, put that in there. Try to make sure that I don't damage any of those copper conductors, any of those wires. Get that in, and I like to twist it. Oops, get the start of it in. The other thing that you can use is the bell end types. Again, I've had to settle for what I could get at the time. Sometimes when you do this, if you don't get them in there the first few times, sometimes it's easy to cut it back and start again, because those wires will just try and go the direction they want to go. So you'll notice that I've got that hard up against the insulation there, and I've got my copper is right at the very end, right there, ready to go. I've got a couple of different crimping tools. There's this one, or there's the hydraulic one. I'm going to use a little hydraulic one today. I'm going to turn it on. It's on. Pump him up a little bit, and hope that's on camera. What I want to be able to do is make sure that I get a nice square finish. Everything's up against the... There we go. So now that's starting to bite in there. There we go. Alright, that should be spot on. Let him off. Let's have a look. Righto, that's on there. Looks neat to me. I'm happy with that, as long as that's not coming off. Pretty good. Now I'm going to put some heat shrink around it. Alright, I've got my heat shrink here. What I'm going to do is basically cut my heat shrink so it comes down about 25mm past our join there, or where the crimp itself finishes and the insulation starts. I want to still be able to see the red, so that I know that's my positive. You can get red heat shrink. In this case, I'm using black. Now, something that I just want to point out, sometimes when you cut your heat shrink, if you're using pliers, that's not too bad actually, but sometimes when you're using pliers or side cutters or something, you get a bit of a, I don't know, an uneven cut. So I sometimes prefer to use scissors or a cutter or something, a blade, and get a nice even cut. But it's about there, that's where I want it, and I'm going to use my scissors. There we go, beautiful cut. Alright, there's no uneven chunks coming off of that or anything else, and then I've just got to shrink that over the top. Now what I want to make sure of is that my heat shrink doesn't come over the conductor itself, because what I don't want is the heat shrink interfering with the connection when it goes down onto the bus bar, onto the bus bar. You'll probably see that one that I just did, which is our negative wire here, is slightly better than the positive, because what happens is the positive, I've come a little bit too far up on the insulation or the heat shrink. I'm going to have to trim that back, whereas our negative is pretty well spot on. I'll double check it when I put it over the lug itself or the terminal to make sure that it doesn't interfere with my connection there, but I need to be really focused on that to make sure that that's 100% right. I don't have any conductive issues, any problems there. Alright, I've just about got the basics of it all wired in now, and what I need to do now is start getting my cables sorted out. Now what you'll notice is each of these cables is marked. So this is rear port, these are bilge pump wires, bilge pump number 3, bilge pump number something, and they're basically, I've got 4 of them there. Now somebody has sort of said to me, why you got so many bilge pumps? You only really need one in the center of your boat. But because of the way that the structure is in this boat, because of the way the bulkheads are being formed, I want some dry areas, and I want all the water to flow to one central area. That's where I've got my biggest bilge pump, my most important bilge pump, and everything else is basically a dry area, but I put a bilge pump in there anyway, so is what it is. So what I've got to do now is sort out all of these cables and wires and get them into position, bring them up. These are going to be my negatives, and on my negative bus bars. These are my fused, obviously my fused positive sides. I've got a positive bus bar back over here as well, and a negative bus bar. So that's coming from my battery, 16mm squared cable, and that's plenty for the loads that I've got on it here. So here we go. I'm going to start sorting these out. Now I'm probably going to break this video up into, well, this electrical stuff up into a few different videos, so if I don't finish this, so be it. But we're getting there, we're making some progress, trying to keep it neat and tidy. Very important, neat and tidy for this sort of stuff. I really want to, I'll probably have to come back and tidy this up a little bit more, get them nice and neat. That's not too bad, that's okay. So I've got my heat shrink, glue line, dual wall heat shrink on here. I've got the right size crimp and everything, 16mm cable, 6mm crimp, 6mm hole I should say. I've cable tied it. I've got mechanical supports and everything there. That's not going to move, that's not going to go anywhere. That's all good. These are all mechanically supported as well. So you'll note that I've got, I don't know if you can see that, but I've got some corrugated conduits coming through where I've got the holes. I've got corrugated conduits coming through, that's protecting those cables, that's mechanical protection. And I've got to fix this up here. This is no good, that's not good. So I've got to fix that up. Basically what I'm going to do there is I might just cut some corrie and put it through, slot the corrie and put it through, or I might get some of that black slotted stuff. I don't use that, I don't like using it. It's normally a very thin wall. I don't think it provides a huge amount of mechanical protection. It'll probably wear through just as quick as anything else, but in the cases where I can't put anything else on, that'll do. You know, I'll put it on and keep an eye on it over time, but there we go.